Well, last week we dealt with the prelude to the story, and the cornerstone is established in the minds of those who heard the story that if we abandon our spiritual dimension, we can make a mess of the world and we can destroy it. That's the prelude. But then we have the story of the flood. It's consistent with all of the campfire stories. Remember the creation story? Humankind ate the forbidden fruit, messed up, and set the stage for the divine response. Cain messed up, killed his brother, set the stage for the divine response. Now, the stage is set again. Human beings, left to their own resources, messed up and set the stage for the divine response. In each story, the divine response was unexpected. In the story of the flood, as the world was on the brink of destruction, God sees through all the mess and finds one faithful one. Name was Noah. Now, Noah would be the bridge to human existence beyond the flood. Beyond destruction, there would be a bridge to the future. Yahweh was dependent not on the masses of humanity, but on one solitary human being, that the Creator created order as Yahweh had intended would be preserved because of Noah. So I'm going to read some verses from the story. You can read Genesis 6 to 9 on your own. But beginning with, in the 6th chapter, the 9th verse, these are the generations of Noah. Noah was a righteous man, blameless in his generation. And Noah walked with God. Now the earth was corrupt, beginning verse 11. The earth was corrupt in Noah's sight, and the earth was filled with violence. And God saw the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted their way upon the earth. And God said to Noah, I've determined to make an end of all flesh, for the earth is filled with violence through them. Behold, I will destroy them with the earth. Verse 1 in chapter 7. Then the Lord said to Noah, go into the ark, you and all your household, for I have seen that you are righteous before me in this generation. Remember some time ago when Maddie taught and said that righteousness oftentimes is akin to justice? It's a wonderful illustration of that. And then verse 15 in chapter 7, they went into the ark with Noah, 2 and 2 of all flesh, in which there was the breath of life. And they that entered, male and female of all flesh, went in as God had commanded him, and the Lord shut him in. And then in chapter 8, we read, beginning in verse 13. In the 601st year, in the first month, the first day of the month, the waters were dried off the earth. And Noah removed the covering of the ark, and looked, and behold, the face of the ground was dry. In the second month, on the 27th day of the month, the earth was dry. Then God said to Noah, go forth from the ark, you and your wife, your sons and your sons' wives with you. Bring forth for you every living thing that is with you of all flesh, birds and animals, every creeping thing that creeps on the earth, that they may breed abundantly on the earth, be fruitful and multiply upon the earth. So Noah went forth, and his sons and his wife and his sons' wives with them. And every beast, every creeping thing, and every bird, everything that moves upon the earth, went forth by families out of the ark. Then Noah built an altar to the Lord. Now, that's the story. Now, this understanding of the divine, of the experience of the divine, is a key understanding of the Hebrew preachers and prophets, whose messages often were encouraging the remnant to be faithful against all odds, because God had chosen the remnant to represent humanity to the future, to the way of love. Jesus picked up this theme of the prophets. The very few who followed him were called to be faithful to the cause of suffering and sacrificing for others, for in so doing, they were God's witnesses to the world and the future of the way of love. The bridge to the future was always in the hands of the remnant, the few, and in the story of the flood, to the one. The history of the Christian movement is full of God choosing a remnant in the darkest times of human violence. Who would have thought that one landowner walking the colonies from one colony to the other before the United States became, talking to one landowner at a time, who would have thought that one farmer could convince the first Protestant denomination to take a stand against slavery, which happened to be the Quakers, a Noah of his day? Who would have thought that the voice of one German soldier could have convinced two army regiments who were and would be killing each other, deciding to call a truce on Christmas Day, singing Christmas carols together in the trenches dug for violence and the burials of the enemy? He was a Noah of his day. Yes, one of the great hymns we sing today is the voice of God. It's calling, it summons unto all. It's a hymn we sing which represents what it means for Noah, for the German soldier, for the Quaker farmer, for all being claimed by Yahweh in the darkest of times to be a bridge to God's future. Now, the story of the flood contains the truth that in human history, God's not looking for the multitudes. God is always looking for the faithful remnant on whom the divine can depend to be the bridge over troubled waters in the history of humankind. Remember the folk song from the 60s, A Bridge Over Troubled Waters? regardless of how bad the world can become, left to human hands who deny or ignore the spiritual dimension of their existence. Yahweh will always find the faithful who will lead the human race into the future and the divine intent of the created order will be sustained. You see, the new cornerstone of the Judeo-Christian culture, existing for 3,000 years, emerges just before the flood occurs. The cornerstone is, in the darkest times of human life, God will find the faithful. Quite a message, quite a cornerstone. Think about these things, and we'll talk about them Sunday. First of all, who might be the Noahs of our day today? Secondly, what are the human conditions in the lives of families, communities, schools, workplace, recreation sites, where a remnant of faithfulness is needed to enable there to be a sunrise after the darkest of destructive nights? Finally, where and what situation could the voice of God be calling in God's world today? Thanks for being a part of the journey.